Of all the beautiful beaches in Florida, one coastal island can be set apart from the rest. Consistently voted as the #1 beach in America, Siesta Key is unlike any other beach on Earth, for its ancient white sand is not made of pulverized shell or coral, but rather 99% pure quartz crystal. It is this fact that fuels a belief held by many that Siesta Key ranks among the most magical and healing places on Earth. So too does the phenomenal presence of this crystal sand serve to some as convincing evidence for a possible location of Atlantis. As legend has it, quartz crystal played a large role in the downfall of that once great but now forgotten Maritime Empire. In this video, we will uncover the mysteries surrounding Siesta Key Beach and discuss the miraculous qualities of its sacred sand. Now enjoy.
Welcome to Florida, baby.
Introducing Dr. Narco Longo.
Siesta Key is a small barrier island located on the west coast of Florida, just south of Tampa Bay, near Sarasota. Upon European arrival in 1513, Siesta Key was under the domain of the Calusa Empire, but the indigenous name for this ancient isle has been lost to time. Its first recorded European name was likely Zara Zota, which was applied to the greater Sarasota area by the Spanish in the late 1500s. We then have Siesta Key itself, receiving the name of Sarasota Key and Little Sarasota Key by its subsequent English-speaking inhabitants. In 1952, the name Siesta was adopted after the Siesta Land Company, founded by one of Sarasota's first mayors, Harry Heigl. For those not familiar, a siesta is an afternoon rest or nap, especially one taken during the hottest hours of the day. Siestas are customary in many cultures found in warm climate areas. This Spanish siesta originates from the Latin sexta, referring to the 6th hour of the day, which is noon when counting forward from 6 a.m. Many non-Floridians assume that the title of Key strictly refers to the archipelago to which Key West belongs, but in actuality, Key can apply to any small coastal island in Florida. The word Key comes from the Taíno and later Spanish word Cayo, meaning small island. The first thing that one should know about Siesta Key is the fact that it has been consistently voted as the #1 beach in America and is widely ranked among the best in the world. For example, in 1987, Crescent Beach of Siesta Key was declared to have the world's finest, whitest sand in the Great International Sand Challenge, topping more than 30 other contestants, including the Bahamas and Grand Cayman. In 2011, Siesta Key was named the #1 beach in America by Dr. Stephen Leatherman, aka Dr. Beach. The beach was again crowned by Dr. Leatherman in 2017, making it the first beach to have earned this award multiple times. In 2015, Siesta Key was voted the best beach in the United States by TripAdvisor, and to this day remains on their list of top beaches in the world. These are only a few of the many awards and titles which Siesta Key has earned since it popped up on the public's radar. It suffices to say that Siesta Key is by far the most renowned beach in America, and, in terms of sand quality, the most distinguished on Earth. But what exactly makes Siesta Key so remarkable? Around the world, beach sand is generally comprised of eroded coral, crushed up shell, and bits of rock, sometimes volcanic, among other things. Such is the case for the vast majority of Florida's natural beaches. For example, the orange to cinnamon colored sand of Daytona Beach, Ormond Beach, and Ponte Vedra, on the northeast coast, is the result of iron oxide from the local coquina rock. The black sand of Caspersen Beach and Venice Beach, on the west coast, is due to the rich fossil deposits for which that area is known. The coarse sand of Sanibel Island and Captiva, on the southwest coast, is comprised of crushed bits of the shells for which that area is world famous. As briefly demonstrated, the composition of a beach sand is generally determined by the geology of its immediate vicinity. Here is what makes Siesta Key so special. In contrast to the typical beach with sand of local origin, Siesta Key beach sand is comprised of over 99% quartz crystal. You heard that right. Over 99% pure, clear quartz in a finely powdered state. This is the same clear quartz that one would buy in a crystal shop or metaphysical store, but it has been ground down into a powder over millions of years. This anomalous concentration of powdered quartz causes some very unusual effects. The first thing one will notice when walking across Siesta Beach is that the sand refuses to get hot. As I can attest, having been there myself many times, the sand remains cool under your feet, even on the hottest of days. Due to the reflective nature of quartz, this sacred white sand will never reach an uncomfortable temperature, allowing for people to safely walk barefoot. The shell-based sand of most other beaches in warmer climates may become too hot to walk on and can even cause debilitating burns to the soles of people's feet. Such an injury is unheard of in Siesta Key. However, this reflectivity accounts for the only downside to Siesta Key Beach, the potential for upside-down sunburn. That is, sunburn on your ankles or legs from the sun bouncing off the reflective quartz sand like a mirror. Another potential downside to Siesta Key is the sheer glare from the whiteness of its sand. It's perhaps the only beach on Earth where one could go sand blind. Another anomaly is that when walking through the sand of Siesta Beach, one will notice a strange squeak or creaking noise accompanying every footstep. This noise is a result of quartz's unique piezoelectric qualities. According to the American Institute of Physics, piezoelectricity is the generation of electricity from applied pressure. This applied pressure produces dynamic mechanical energy, which is converted to electrical energy using piezoelectric materials. Human bones are made up of piezoelectric material, and thus when we exercise, a voltage is produced inside the body. Every step in Siesta Key beach sand is like a combined dose of electrotherapy and a crystal bowl sound bath. Due to the rich mythical folklore and overall pleasance of Siesta Key, the beach naturally hosts a year-round, weekly drum circle. Every Sunday, the drum circle begins just before sunset, year-round, on Siesta Beach, and nearby Inglewood and Nokomis beaches. There is also a sizable drum circle which meets across the bay on Treasure Island. All of these beaches are rich in quartz, but Siesta Beach is the purest. The sand of Siesta Beach is also much finer than elsewhere, giving it a truly powdered consistency. Beaches rich in quartz can be found elsewhere in Florida, but these less pure deposits are termed sugar sand for their grain size, whereas Siesta Key beach sand is even finer, being almost closer to flour in its consistency. It is for this reason that every Instagram model in the world has Siesta Key on their radar, as it delivers the coveted sandy cheek effect better than any other beach on Earth. Another benefit of this sand's fine grain and extraordinary purity is that it can be shaped and molded by artists with ease. It is for this reason that Siesta Key annually hosts the International Sand Sculpting Festival, better known as the Crystal Classic.
Sculptors like Ron and Steve come here from all over the country and the world, and they're drawn by the sand.
It stacks, it holds fairly well, and it carves beautifully, okay? And it's clean, there's nothing in it.
There's nothing in it.
A lot of times you're carving and you run into trash and, stuff in the sand. This is just ideally clean, so you don't run across that cigarette butt right in the crooks of the nose as you're cutting something out. It's really well groomed and really well maintained.
As if the concentration and purity of the quartz sand were not strange enough, there is also the mystery of its origin. Although technically a natural beach, the quartz sand of Siesta Key is not even from Florida. Geologists with Harvard University have determined that the sacred sand of Crescent Beach and Siesta Beach at Siesta Key originates from the Appalachian Mountains over 500 miles to the north, and is in fact over 99% pure, clear quartz crystal. According to the Harvard geologists, the sand is millions of years old. Having been ground down through the ages, it was carried down from the mountains to the Gulf of Mexico by rivers. This vast timeline is evidenced, experts tell us, by the fact that feldspar and mica are absent from the quartz. Grain by grain, the quartz sand deposited itself at Siesta Key, over 500 miles away from where it started. The geologists are rather certain of where the sand came from, but have no clue why it has been consistently deposited in this one location with such an extraordinary concentration. It seems as though there is a magnetic pull which Siesta Key exerts on this powdered quartz from Appalachia. Keep in mind, there is little to no shell or coral material in Siesta Key's beach sand, an anomaly to say the least. Local lore, however, points to the lost empire of Atlantis and the Bermuda Triangle as being the origin of this pulverized crystal, and there is actually more to this theory than meets the eye. Located just north of Siesta Key, on the other side of Tampa Bay, is a city by the name of Tarpon Springs, Florida. Being the sea sponge capital of the world, Tarpon Springs has the highest concentration of Greek people outside of Europe, and is the most Greek city in the Western Hemisphere by far. Tarpon Springs is so Greek that 1 in 10 of its residents still speak a Hellenic dialect in the home. Keeping in mind that we are discussing a Greek legend about a lost maritime empire, I would now like to introduce you to the Saxor Stones of Florida, the greatest evidence yet presented for a tangible Atlantis. Before the advent of the common iron, steel, or lead anchor used by ships today, crudely shaped stones with holes bored through them served this role for ancient seafarers. So too did stones of this sort function as storm drogues and ballasts. The Saxor Stones of Florida are the largest and likely oldest stone anchors in the world. Megalithic anchors can be found in every corner of the state, but have their highest concentration near Tarpon Springs and Siesta Key. This can be no coincidence. The Saxor Stones were named for local Florida mythologer and psychic archaeologist John Saxor of the Royal Merovingian House of Saxe. There is no recorded connection between the Saxor Stones and the overwhelming Greek population of Tarpon Springs, as their recent immigration from Greece, we are told, was solely due to the Greeks' desire to partake in Florida's sponging industry. Saxor, however, believes that the most intuitive of the Greek, like salmon, have returned to their original spawning point, the capital seaport of Atlantis, just north of Siesta Key. While this may sound ridiculous to some, the Saxor Stones serve as clear evidence that the Tampa Bay area was in fact the epicenter of a great maritime empire. An empire of very large people with very large ships, requiring very large anchors. Our mainstream academia does not acknowledge the Saxor Stones, as they are too large to have been fashioned or deployed by men of ordinary stature with primitive means. Despite this, authentic limestone anchors used by ancient Floridians are actually proudly displayed in state museums, albeit the ones of a diminutive and explicable size. Having now addressed the Greek connection, the assertion that Florida was Atlantis, or a piece of Atlantis, is further strengthened by the life's work of renowned American psychic Edgar Cayce, who pinpointed Bimini, an island just off the coast of Florida, as the central hub and hall of records for that empire. Cayce pointed to the Gulf Stream, an anomalous warm water current originating just off of Siesta Key, which wraps around the coast of Florida, as the primary highway for the Atlantean Empire. He, among others, believed that the downfall of the Atlanteans was largely due to their misuse of quartz and crystal technologies, but was the first to popularize this concept. Cayce asserted that all the phenomena attributed to the Bermuda Triangle was really just the residual effects of Atlantis's crippled and submerged technologies. Unfortunately, when most people think of quartz technology, they think of New Age nonsense, remaining ignorant of this crystal's vital use in modern innovations. Quartz crystal was and still is integral to the advent of the telephone, radio, television, computer, portable electronics, and smartphones, just to name a few. The reality is that quartz and other crystals offered these same capabilities to men and women in ancient times, regardless of whether our mainstream academia admits it or not. These themes should sound awfully familiar to to those who have seen Disney's 2001 Atlantis, The Lost Empire, which largely drew from Casey's descriptions. This movie prominently features the use of crystal technologies by the Atlanteans, who are depicted looking like Native Americans, but with icy blonde hair. The association of Atlantis with blonde hair brings us to our next interpretation of the myth, that from Finland, the blondest place on Earth. Finnish mystic Eeyore Bach, though differing in his geography of Atlantis, likewise emphasizes both the Gulf Stream of Florida and the use of quartz crystal in his Atlantean mythos. The sacred and ancient ocean current, known as the Gulf Stream, snakes its way from St. Petersburg, Florida, in the Gulf of Mexico, to St. Petersburg, Russia, in the Gulf of Finland, St. Petersburg to St. Petersburg, Gulf to Gulf. Interestingly, Lake Worth, Florida, positioned precisely where the Gulf Stream comes closest to mainland America, between the Bahamas and Palm Beach County, Florida, is home to the highest concentration of Finnish people outside of Scandinavia. So too do we find a number of Finnish words, symbols, and religious practices in the native people of Florida, a link which should not exist in the eyes of our mainstream academia. The last connection between Atlantis and Florida that we shall discuss is Scientology. Many people are simply not aware that the worldwide spiritual headquarters of the Church of Scientology, known as Flag Land Base, is located in Clearwater, Florida, just across the bay from Siesta Key. Science fiction writer L. Ron Hubbard, the founder of the Church of Scientology, wrote that Atlantis was a highly advanced civilization that existed millions of years ago. He claimed that the Atlanteans were obsessed with electronics and had developed sophisticated technology far beyond what was known in his time. As we have already established, electronics and quartz crystal go hand in hand. So what reason did these Scientologists really have for setting up their headquarters so close to Siesta Key, Florida? Another thing that makes Siesta Key stand out is the fact that the Amish and Mennonites actually have a small settlement just down the road, making it the only destination that these communities collectively vacation to. If you spend enough time at Siesta Key, you will see Mennonite girls in bikinis, Amish people riding bicycles, and all other sorts of taboos which are typically prohibited in those cultures. And I know what you may be thinking, but they are not on Rumspringa, an adolescent rite of passage in which the youth are encouraged to spend time among us city dwellers. These communities simply let loose when at Siesta Key, which I think must count for something. In conclusion, I would like to invite all of you listening and watching to come down to Florida and put Siesta Key Beach to the test. For those already familiar with Siesta Key, I ask that you continue to do your part in preserving this wonderful gift from God, a timeless signature of His doings in the great state of Florida.